We have been promised driverless cars for almost a decade now, but just as Tesla's version seems to be getting off the ground, serious safety concerns now remain. So is Tesla's Autopilot safe, and what legal trouble is the company now in? I'm Ahron Young. We are going to find out.
Now from our headquarters at Ticker Park, this is Ticker Today.
Hello. Okay, so Elon Musk's Tesla is gearing up to defend itself against allegations its Autopilot driver assistant feature has been linked to fatal accidents. The company is currently facing two trials with the potential for more on the horizon. The first, scheduled for mid-September, claims that Tesla's Autopilot led to an accident in which a customer's Model 3 veered off a highway east of LA, resulting in his death. So are these cars safe, and how much trouble is the company in? For more, we're joined by technology reporter from The Messenger, Ben Powers, and attorney Andrew Rossow. Andrew, I'll start with you. What are the details of the case? What do we know?
So what we know at this point, Aaron, is that Tesla ultimately is arguing that these complaints by these families on behalf of the deceased was due to a driver error. On the flip side, these families are also arguing that no, it wasn't a driver error. It was a defective autopilot system that made these drivers lose control of their car. And what this case is going to represent for these two, as well as any future cases, is going to change the entire narrative of who and what Tesla stands for with these technologies.
Ben, I want to get your thoughts on this, because obviously Tesla is very reliant on governments agreeing. It's also very reliant on people deciding to buy these cars and to put their faith, their trust, their lives into Tesla's hand. How much trouble do you think Tesla is in as more and more of these cases come forward?
I think Tesla's more so in a sort of a snowball with the whole Elon Musk brand, right? It doesn't just apply to Tesla. It applies to X. It applies to a lot of other things. I will say that most recently, Musk kind of took a self-driving car, via Tesla, FSD, and had to intervene to make sure that it didn't run a red light. So if that's kind of the barometer that we're looking at, it leads a lot of questions around this and kind of what's going to happen in regards to it. But I think for the most part, Tesla investors are very wary of things like X, but the Musk brand is starting to get diluted because a lot of these lawsuits are coming to ground.
Yeah. Now, Ben, when we have a look at it, obviously the question is, are these cars safe? What's your view as a technology reporter?
I wrote about this probably about 5 months ago, about the challenges with full self-driving and what that means. And for me, at least, what I uncovered in my reporting was that it's really difficult. It's hard to promise that you can actually have a car that can do full self-driving. Look, San Francisco just passed an ordinance that allowed more autonomous vehicles on the street. We're seeing them back up intersections. We're seeing them get stuck and various things like that. It's not to say that it is not a promise that could be fulfilled, but I think what Musk has promised again and again goes beyond the actual technology that the company is capable of. And so for me, what is at hand here is people trusting full self-driving without having all the knowledge and thinking it's going to just be an end-all be-all, and they don't even get behind the wheel sometimes, and that creates problems.
Andrew, your thoughts on this? Because we've been promised the ability for driverless cars. I mean, how many billions of dollars have been spent by Silicon Valley tech companies and many others trying to make sure we can do it? Whatever happened to Apple's plans as well for the Apple car that we were talking about a few years back? It seems to be really difficult. And as Ben says, the idea is that we want people to be able to get into a car and to have faith and trust. But as we know, when it comes to technology, particularly new technology, there is a period of time where they've got to learn probably from every crash. You just don't really want to be the test dummy.
There has been so much money spent on these technologies and very little time spent on making sure that when they do go out to the public, where the everyday person like you and I can play with it, that it's safe, that it is doing what it is supposed to. And what we've seen just this year alone, especially with ChatGPT, is that these types of technologies are just being rushed out to the public in this race to be first, to be the loudest in the room. And with this concern with Tesla and its autopilot system, you're balancing here the driver's conduct with a potentially defective system, which makes for a more complicated analysis.
Yeah. All right. Keen to hear your thoughts, of course. Email us at news@tickernews.co or use the hashtag tickernews anytime. Now, let's move on to our next story, guys, because Apple stock has been underperforming in the tech-heavy NASDAQ recently, causing concern for investors in the company and the tech sector more broadly. If Apple fails, so too does the world, it seems. But there is hope on the horizon as the company prepares to launch the iPhone 15 next month. Gentlemen, will you be buying the iPhone 15? Andrew, you use this other thing. I'm not quite sure what it is.
Yeah, I guess I'm the elephant in the room here. I switched over to Android about a year and a half ago, but I have had an iPhone for many, many years, very familiar with the system. I think with any new device that Apple releases, it's an exciting period for users, for customers. But at the same time, looking back at what Apple has been faced with these past few years, from Batterygate, right? The class action settlement that just started its payouts because of allegations that the company was slowing down a battery, to now having to compete against Samsung, right? That is currently, I believe, the world's largest smartphone maker. So it's an interesting time, especially where the economy may not be where it is. And are people willing to upgrade as quickly as they used to?
Well, I guess that's why they've been looking for different markets, isn't it? The idea of heading to India and places where getting an iPhone 15 or 14, wherever we're at, might actually seem as a bit of a status symbol. That's the hope. Whether there are the millions of people who have the funds during what seems to be a global downturn is another thing as well. Ben, I know you're covering this one too. Why do you think that the stock has been performing so poorly over, well, the past few months, the past few weeks?
Well, thankfully, I didn't have to cover that earnings call, to be clear. But I do think that the fact that, a Samsung phone is upwards of $1,800, whereas an iPhone's about, around $1,000, I think it's important because that kind of lays out the baseline here. That being said, what the stock might be reacting to is just the Vision Pro. And the Vision Pro is Apple's entire endeavor into VR, AR, everything else like that, but it is incredibly expensive with a small market. And so I don't think investors are going to be reacting well to that. And that's just because, look, like Meta, way less expensive version of that, who really wants to do business in VR? Like obviously Meta, Apple, other companies are experimenting with it. But in my mind, the lack of appetite for that sort of thing, even if we're doing a new iPhone, is kind of what might be driving that down.
Yeah, really interesting point when we talk about VR and the idea, start of the year, it was all about anything to do with AI. And then when it comes to VR and what could come together as well, Nvidia's stock's been doing pretty well too. Talk to us, Andrew, if you can, about Apple's performance, what it means for the broader tech sector, because Apple, the biggest company in the world, it's got a massive valuation, and what happens to it, no doubt, is linked to Amazon and to Microsoft and to Nvidia and to Google as well, to Alphabet. Talk to us about the impact that Apple has for the rest of the tech sector.
I think Apple is in the position to become or maintain its position as a tech powerhouse, right? You are seeing its product lines expanding across multiple industries. As Ben just said, the Vision Pro, right? Getting into the VR AR space, but also still holding itself out as a mobile device manufacturer. I think Apple, like a lot of big tech, has started to spread itself out very, very thin. So the ability for it to focus as much on a particular niche or product line as it used to, it's very different now. And I think one of the another point to take into consideration is the expectation that these new iPhone devices will start to have that USB-C charging port, right? And the EU has been very adamant about having that universal ability to have a single charger.
Yeah, I love though the idea that by trying to get everyone to change to USB-C, now every single person who owns an Apple has to get rid of Lightning and throw that out to swap across. So it seems to maybe work in 10 years for now, but we got to get there. Gentlemen, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. All right, and that is the show for now. For more, you can head to tickernews.com. Ahron Young, do hope to see you soon.